They're all lies, and I did not do anything to those little boys, and I'm going to fight it.
In the world of American television, few names have carried as much respect and recognition as Timothy Busfield. For decades, this actor and director has been a familiar face in some of the most beloved shows to ever grace the small screen. From his Emmy Award-winning work on the groundbreaking drama 30-something to his memorable role in the critically acclaimed political series The West Wing, Busfield built a career that spanned more than 40 years. He worked alongside some of Hollywood's biggest names, directed episodes of popular series, and was widely regarded as a talented and dedicated professional in the entertainment industry. But today, that legacy faces its most serious challenge, one that threatens to overshadow everything he has ever accomplished in his lengthy career. To understand the gravity of this situation, we must first look at who Timothy Busfield really is and how he arrived at this moment. Born in Lansing, Michigan in 1957, Busfield discovered his passion for acting at an early age. He attended East Lansing High School and later studied theater at Michigan State University, where he began to develop the skills that would eventually make him a household name. His big break came in 1987 when he was cast as Elliot Weston in the ABC drama 30-something. The show, which followed the lives of a group of baby boomers living in Philadelphia, became a cultural phenomenon and earned Busfield an Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series in 1991. This recognition opened doors for him throughout Hollywood and established him as a serious talent both in front of and behind the camera. Following his success on 30-something, Busfield continued to work steadily in television and film. He appeared in movies like Revenge of the Nerds and Field of Dreams. In 2021, Busfield began working on the Fox crime drama The Cleaning Lady, a show that filmed its scenes in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The series, which follows a Cambodian doctor who becomes a cleaner for the mob while trying to find treatment for her sick son, required the involvement of several child actors in recurring roles. Busfield, as a director on the show, worked closely with these young performers on set, guiding their performances and ensuring they delivered the emotional depth the series required. At the time, no one could have imagined the allegations that would later emerge from these professional interactions. The first signs of trouble appeared in November 2024. When something happened that would set in motion a chain of events leading to criminal charges against the veteran director. A doctor in Albuquerque, during a routine medical examination of a child, became concerned enough about what they observed or were told to contact local authorities. This report triggered an investigation by the Albuquerque Police Department, which began looking into potential abuse involving child actors working on the set of The Cleaning Lady. As detectives began interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence, their attention gradually focused on Timothy Busfield, who had been a regular presence on the show's set during its production in New Mexico. For weeks, the investigation proceeded quietly, away from the public eye. Detectives spoke with multiple individuals connected to the show, including crew members, parents, and the child actors themselves. What they found, according to court documents filed later, was enough to convince prosecutors that there was probable cause to believe crimes had been committed. The investigation revealed that two boys, both under the age of 13 at the time of the alleged incidents, had worked with Busfield on the set of The Cleaning Lady. According to the allegations that would later be presented to a grand jury, Busfield had touched these young actors in ways that they found inappropriate and uncomfortable, including contact with their private areas during what should have been normal professional interactions on set. On January 9, 2026, the legal proceedings against Timothy Busfield began in earnest when a judge in New Mexico signed an arrest warrant based on the evidence gathered during the investigation. Busfield, who was not in New Mexico at the time, learned of the warrant through his legal team and made arrangements to surrender to authorities. 4 days later, on January 13th, he turned himself in at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Albuquerque, where he was booked, photographed, and fingerprinted like any other criminal defendant. The image of the Emmy-winning actor in a jail mugshot shocked fans and colleagues who had known him for decades as a respected figure in the entertainment industry. Following his arrest, Busfield appeared before a judge for an initial hearing where the charges against him were formally presented. The judge set conditions for his release, recognizing that he was not considered a flight risk, despite the serious nature of the allegations. Busfield was ordered to have no contact with the alleged victims, to submit to supervision by pretrial services, and to comply with other standard conditions imposed on defendants awaiting trial for sex crimes. His attorney argued successfully that his client should be released pending trial, pointing to his long career, his family ties, and the fact that he had voluntarily surrendered to authorities as evidence that he would not flee or pose a danger to the community. The case took another significant step forward on February 6, 2026, when a grand jury in New Mexico convened to consider the evidence against Busfield. Grand juries in the American legal system serve an important function, determining whether there is enough evidence to formally charge someone with a crime and proceed to trial. After hearing testimony from witnesses and reviewing the evidence presented by prosecutors, the grand jury returned an indictment charging Timothy Busfield with 4 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor. This indictment meant the prosecutors had successfully convinced the grand jury that there was probable cause to believe Busfield had committed the crimes he was accused of. The specific allegations contained in the indictment paint a disturbing picture of what allegedly occurred on the set of The Cleaning Lady. According to the charges, the 2 young victims, both boys under the age of 13, were working as child actors on the show when Busfield allegedly engaged in inappropriate sexual contact with them. The incidents reportedly took place while Busfield was directing them, during what should have been professional interactions focused on their performances. The indictment alleges that Busfield touched the boys in ways they found inappropriate, including contact with their private areas, and that these actions occurred on multiple occasions. Prosecutors have not released extensive details about the specific circumstances of each alleged incident, citing the need to protect the identities and privacy of the minor victims. It is crucial at this point to understand what these charges mean within the context of the American legal system. An indictment is not a finding of guilt, but rather a formal accusation that allows the case to proceed to trial. In the United States, every criminal defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Timothy Busfield, through his attorney, has consistently denied any wrongdoing and has stated his intention to fight the charges vigorously. His legal team has indicated that they will present evidence and arguments at trial challenging the allegations and the credibility of the witnesses against him. The response from the entertainment industry to these allegations has been notably quiet. Fox, the network that airs The Cleaning Lady, has declined to comment on the ongoing legal proceedings, as has Warner Brothers Television, which produces the show. Industry insiders suggest that the production company is conducting its own internal review of what happened on set and what protocols were in place to protect the child actors. The show itself continues to air, but Busfield has not been involved in any recent episodes, and it remains unclear whether he will ever work in Hollywood again, regardless of the outcome of his criminal case. To fully understand the severity of the charges Busfield faces, one must look at the laws of New Mexico regarding criminal sexual contact with a minor. Under state law, criminal sexual contact is defined as the touching of a person's intimate parts, including the genital area, buttocks, or breasts, without the person's consent. When the alleged victim is under 13 years old, the crime is considered a second-degree felony, carrying significant potential penalties. If convicted on all 4 counts, Busfield could face decades in prison, as New Mexico law allows for consecutive sentences in cases involving multiple victims or multiple incidents. Additionally, conviction would require him to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life, a consequence that would fundamentally alter every aspect of his existence. The legal process ahead for Busfield will be lengthy and complex. Following his indictment, the case will move into the pre-trial phase, during which both sides will engage in discovery, exchanging evidence and information about their respective cases. Prosecutors will be required to turn over any evidence that might be favorable to the defense, including materials that could be used to impeach the credibility of their witnesses. The defense, in turn, will have the opportunity to file motions challenging the admissibility of certain evidence, or even seeking to have the charges dismissed if they believe the prosecution's case is legally insufficient. One of the key issues that will likely be litigated in this case involves the location of the alleged incidents. Because they reportedly occurred on a television set, questions may arise about whether the set should be considered a workplace and what responsibilities employers have to protect child actors from potential abuse. Child labor laws in New Mexico, as in most states, impose strict requirements on employers who hire minors, including regulations about working hours, supervision, and working conditions. It remains to be seen whether these laws will play any role in the criminal proceedings against Busfield, or whether the case will focus solely on his individual actions. The timing of these allegations has also raised questions about how long the abuse may have continued and whether other children might have been affected. The indictment covers incidents that allegedly occurred while Busfield was directing The Cleaning Lady, which began production in 2021 and continued filming in Albuquerque through 2024. This 3-year period represents a significant window during which multiple child actors passed through the show's set, raising concerns that there may be additional victims who have not yet come forward. Prosecutors have encouraged anyone with information about potential abuse involving Busfield to contact their office, suggesting that the investigation may be ongoing and could potentially expand. For the 2 boys at the center of this case, the legal proceedings represent just one part of a much larger journey toward healing and justice. Child sexual abuse victims often face years of trauma and recovery, and the public nature of a criminal trial can add additional stress to an already difficult situation. Advocates for victims of child sexual abuse emphasize the importance of support systems, including therapy, family support, and victim advocacy services, all of which are being made available to these young accusers as the case moves forward. The broader implications of this case extend far beyond the individuals directly involved. In an industry that has faced numerous scandals involving the abuse of children, from the revelations about Harvey Weinstein to the documentary about Nickelodeon and the boy bands of the 1990s, this case serves as another reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist when children work in entertainment. Child actors spend long hours on sets, often isolated from their families and friends, working with adults who hold positions of authority and trust. The power dynamics inherent in these relationships can create opportunities for exploitation, and this case highlights the importance of robust protections for young performers. In response to these concerns, industry organizations have implemented various safeguards over the years, including requiring the presence of parents or guardians on set, mandating background checks for anyone working with children, and establishing protocols for reporting suspected abuse. The existence of these protections, however, does not guarantee that abuse will not occur, and this case raises questions about whether the safeguards in place on the set of The Cleaning Lady were sufficient to protect the child actors involved. The legal strategy Busfield's attorneys will employ remains unclear at this early stage of the proceedings. Experienced criminal defense lawyers in cases involving sexual abuse of minors often pursue multiple avenues of defense. They may challenge the credibility of the accusers, pointing to inconsistencies in their statements, or suggesting that they have been influenced by others. They may present evidence of Busfield's good character and long career without prior allegations of misconduct. They may argue that any physical contact that occurred was incidental to the legitimate work of directing child actors and was not sexual in nature. Alternatively, they may attempt to negotiate a plea agreement with prosecutors if the evidence against their client appears overwhelming. Prosecutors, for their part, will be focused on presenting the strongest possible case to a jury. They will rely on the testimony of the 2 boys, supported by any physical evidence or corroborating witnesses who may have observed concerning behavior on set. They may also present expert testimony about child sexual abuse, including information about how victims typically disclose abuse and why they may delay reporting. The prosecution's burden will be to prove each element of each charge beyond a reasonable doubt, a high standard that requires convincing evidence and persuasive presentation. The role of the media in covering this case raises important ethical considerations. While the public has a legitimate interest in understanding the allegations against a prominent figure, sensationalized coverage can prejudice potential jurors and cause additional harm to the victims. Responsible journalism in cases involving child sexual abuse requires balancing the public's right to know with the need to protect the privacy and dignity of the accusers. News organizations covering this story must also be careful to avoid implying guilt before a verdict has been reached, recognizing that the presumption of innocence remains a fundamental principle of American justice. As this case proceeds through the legal system, it will undoubtedly attract significant attention from fans of Busfield's work, from advocates for victims of child abuse, and from observers interested in the intersection of Hollywood and criminal justice. The outcome remains uncertain, with many factors potentially influencing the final result, from the strength of the evidence, to the skill of the lawyers, to the composition of the jury that will ultimately decide Busfield's fate. For Timothy Busfield, the journey from celebrated actor and director to criminal defendant has been swift and devastating. A career built over 4 decades now hangs in the balance, threatened by allegations that, if proven true, would represent a profound betrayal of trust and a violation of the most vulnerable members of the entertainment industry. Regardless of the eventual outcome of his case, his reputation has already suffered irreparable damage, and his place in Hollywood history will forever be tainted by these charges. The two young accusers, meanwhile, face their own difficult journey through the criminal justice system. They will be called upon to testify about traumatic experiences, to face cross-examination by defense attorneys, seeking to undermine their credibility, and to relive painful memories in a public forum. Their courage in coming forward, however, serves an important purpose, not only in seeking justice for themselves, but in potentially protecting other children from similar abuse. As the story continues to develop, we will provide updates on significant developments in the case, including any court hearings, motions filed by either side, and ultimately, the trial itself. For now, the case against Timothy Busfield remains in its early stages, with the presumption of innocence intact and the legal process just beginning to unfold. The coming months will reveal much about what actually occurred on the set of The Cleaning Lady, and whether the evidence supports the serious charges contained in the grand jury's indictment. In the meantime, this case serves as a sobering reminder of the responsibilities that come with positions of power and trust, particularly when children are involved. Whether in Hollywood, in schools, in churches, or in families, adults who work with children must remain vigilant in protecting them from harm, and must be held accountable when they fail in that fundamental duty. The justice system exists precisely for this purpose, to investigate allegations of wrongdoing, to provide a fair forum for determining the truth, and to impose appropriate consequences when crimes have been committed. The story of Timothy Busfield is far from over, and its final chapter has yet to be written. What began as a doctor's report to authorities in Albuquerque has grown into a major criminal case involving one of television's most recognizable figures. As the legal proceedings move forward, all eyes will be on the courts of New Mexico, where the truth will ultimately be determined and justice, whatever form it takes, will be served.